Come with me, and you'll be watching a video about Willy Wonka. Will you laugh? Guess we'll see. It's a crapshoot with my YouTube channel. In sticking with tradition, I watched a movie in early January that came out a month before I saw it, and I loved it. And now I want to make a video about it. That movie is Wonka, the 2023 reimagining of the character originally played by Gene Wilder. It's a sort of prequel of this character. This movie, if anything, was imaginative, and how ironic that, you know, the pure imagination is the theme of this character, but it was incredibly imaginative, and I think it did really well with showing us an accurate portrayal of what a young Willy Wonka would look like. Now, I wanted to make this video about a week ago, but with some data and storage mishaps and also not having the right equipment with me back at home, I had to delay it. And since then, I've now seen comments and I've seen reviews, and I've seen the opinions that people have had. This is different from my Puss in Boots review because I made that one the minute I saw it. And this one now I've had a little room to breathe, though I'm gonna try to not let anything that I've seen or heard affect what I say and the opinions that I give. Because I know some people didn't like this movie. I know some people really liked this movie. And I know some people just don't care. And if you don't care, why are you watching the video? Go away, silly. What went right? There's a million things I could say that I think went right. First of all, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You know, Timothée Chalamet was cast as the young Willy Wonka, and the entire internet, when they heard about that, and the entire world were wondering, is he gonna deliver? Is he even gonna be able to do it? I know this guy is kind of funny and whimsical at times, but is he even gonna deliver? My conclusion is yes, he did deliver. It was very fun to see him take on a lot of the aspects and traits of Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka and put them into a younger version, and then also bring some of his own takes on it. You know, he was very silly and quirky in a way that Gene Wilder wasn't as much, but that's because he was playing an older version of this character. So I think it was fun that Timothy had the room to make the younger and more kind of spunky version of this character, and I really liked it. I thought he did a tremendous job. There's multiple other things I can talk about that I will talk about what he nailed in this movie. He just did such a great job. I think every time he was on screen, I was just excited for him to like do another stupid funny thing, and for him to like smile in a goofy way, and I really was charmed by this rendition of Willy Wonka, and I applaud you, Timothy. I think you did a great job, and you did justice to a really important character to a lot of people, and also to me. Willy Wonka is a very important character to me. It's a very important franchise to me, and I really am proud. And I think Gene Wilder would be proud of what you did. And that's a bold statement for me to make because I didn't know the guy, obviously, and also that's just a huge statement to make on behalf of someone. But me, with my personal opinion on what the character is like and how Gene did it and how you did it, I think he'd be proud, and I think he would have been I think he would have enjoyed watching your rendition of it. So good on you, man. Another great thing that I loved about this movie is that it really, I felt like every second mattered, and every second was used in a very useful way, and it was incredibly important that everything that we saw, and I think that that's something that a lot of movies are missing these days. And some people might disagree with me on that. You know, it's super easy to just say this and say, oh, they didn't waste a single second. Someone could turn around and say,
I actually think half of this movie could have been cut.
It's just my opinion. I understand that you would disagree. So please disagree. But I think that every second was used in a very skillful way, and it was important that we see everything and we meet all the characters that we met, and all of the songs. I don't think a single song was not necessary. While that's something that you can really, with any musical, you can say, okay, we could have cut this song. I do think every song had a purpose, and you know, it's not like, oh, they just threw in songs because they wanted to make this more musical. I'm not a huge musical guy. I do still like a lot of musical songs, but I don't know much and really watch much musical, but I thought a lot of, and all of the songs were really great. And let's pivot here and talk about another elephant in the room, which is what were they going to do with pure imagination? That was another thing that I think I went into this movie a little worried about, and a lot of other people were worried about or just thinking about, is what were they going to do to pure imagination? Because, you know, you can't have this Wonka movie without putting the song in there. So the whole movie, and spoiler alert, it comes at the very end. And the whole movie, I was like waiting for it to show up, and then I thought to myself, oh no, are they just gonna play like an instrumental version of it in the credits? Like, is it gonna be a throwaway thing? Are they trying to really detach themselves? And that's something that I think they did a great job. They didn't detach themselves from the medium, and I think they really embraced it, especially with that ending sequence. They finally bring Pure Imagination as a song. They changed some of the lyrics. I think the lyrical changes are super necessary, and I think they're subtle enough because they're applicable to what's happening in the storyline. I loved it. I fell in love with this version of the song as much as I did the Gene Wilder version. I love both versions. They didn't ruin this song. I think they did a great job, and I love hearing how Timothy sings it. I think it works really well for his singing voice, just like Gene Wilder's version works well for his singing voice. I think the slight upbeat nature of the song is a little, I like it. It kind of translates back to this. This is a younger version of Willy Wonka who's a little more like, let's go change the world in this. And then the version with Gene Wilder is something like, I have changed the world, and I'm gonna sing a little more, not somberly, but a little slowly, and I'm gonna kind of, it's this sort of, I've retired, and that's, you know, the storyline of Willy Wonka, is that he eventually retires. And I think that song pairs well with how that character ends up in the end. And I think this song with Wonka pairs really well with how Timothy's character ends up. And really with the way that they ended it with that sequence of the chocolate factory, you know, basically coming to life around them at the end. Nothing was lost. The translation wasn't lost at all. I think the way that the factory looks and all the cool looking machines and the whimsical, kind of nonsensical nature of some of the things that are in there stay the same, and they're in there for good. And you can see the beginnings of the chocolate room where the original Pure Imagination is saying. The nature of Willy Wonka as the character and just the world wasn't lost at all. I think the entire crew, the director, I think everyone did a great job in making sure none of it was lost, or that just enough of it wasn't brought forward, because there's some things about this younger character, this younger version of Willy Wonka, that just don't need to exist, or there's something about the older version of the Willy Wonka that doesn't need to exist in this young version yet, because they're two different kinds of people, but it is the same person. I mean, I really didn't have a hard time imagining that this Timothy Chalamet portrayal is just a young version of the Gene Wilder one. And that's another reason why I stated I think Gene Wilder would have been proud to see this rendition. I think it did really well, and I liked the way that there's nothing lost in the transferring over. I mean, I truly do think that the aesthetic that is brought in the few times that you see it in the movie really was, and this is a compliment, it really was just copied from the original and pasted onto the new one. And I think that's what you needed to do with this character, because a lot of people care about this character. I really care about this character, and it's important that you don't think you know what you're doing. You don't give yourself too much power when you're doing an adaptation like this, when you're paying an homage to an incredible franchise and an incredible character. I also have seen some people complain about the fact that, you know, the chocolate shop and the teasing of a chocolate shop existing in this universe doesn't really happen till the end. And I don't think it's super necessary that we see the empire that Willy Wonka has built. The whole point of this movie was to be a prequel, and to be a sort of this is how Willy Wonka came to be. And so then if that is a prequel, I've heard the opposite side of that. People saying that, oh, well, then we shouldn't have seen him be successful at all. We shouldn't have seen him really, you know, be this guy that already knows how to make the chocolate and stuff. And I will point to that saying, you know, it is great to take characters as powerful and as important like Willy Wonka, and, you know, put them at a lower point in their life. And that's showing, you know, like character development and character growth. As a film critic, I don't know, I'm not a film critic, but as a guy who watches a lot of films and likes to critique them, I understand that. You know, I understand totally. There was character growth in Wonka in this one, but there wasn't much of a detachment from what he used to be, and we didn't see him become that whimsical, funny, positive guy. He just always was, except for, you know, in dire times and in times where it was very dark and very gloomy. I understand that. You know, I totally agree, but what I think is important to realize is that this movie, I think, wasn't made because it needed to be a movie. this didn't need to be made, but I think the reason that it was made is I think it was made, one, to pay an homage to Gene Wilder, to the character. He didn't create the character, but he made the character. I think it was made because I think we kind of need it. I do think that it was a very fun and very positive movie, and something that, you know, we haven't had a lot of movies that, while this one wasn't an original idea, this one just kind of brought something a little lighter back to the movie theaters and to the world, I think. And I think another reason it was made is because we just want to know, like, what did Willy Wonka look like when he was beginning? And that goes back to the argument of, well, if we want to know what he looks like, why didn't we see him at his lowest? Why didn't we see him in downfall and stuff? We did, and yeah, that's true. There is a lot of struggle that he goes through in this movie, but we didn't see him be this, like, other regular person before he became Willy Wonka. In this movie, he was Willy Wonka, but he wasn't Willy Wonka till the end. But he didn't start. This is difficult to explain. I know it's very convoluted and I'm having a hard time, but just bear with me, I'll try my best. He was a good chocolate maker to begin with this movie. And I think the argument some people are making is, oh, he shouldn't have been as good of a chocolate maker, or he shouldn't have been as charismatic to begin with, and we see him progress for that. And, you know, I agree. But I do think that this movie was made just so we could get another version of Willy Wonka and see it. And I was super glad to see that Willy Wonka on screen. I was super glad to see that again after so many years, and after, you know, Gene Wilder passing, after not really seeing someone else, you know, bring that kind of whimsy and bring that magic to the screen in that character. I think Timothée Chalamet and the entire team behind Wonka succeeded in that. And so I think that was the purpose for me. I went into this movie as a Wonka fan. I didn't go into this movie as a film critic. And so I know this series, this video, it seems like I'm trying to critique the movie, and I know it can be easy to look at it and think, well, he's trying to be a film critic, right? Not with this one, really. I am going into this video, and I went into that movie as a Wonka fan, and I'm just stating why I think it did a great job with basically honoring the Wonka franchise. I think it did perfect. I've talked a lot, and there is some more stuff I want to touch on. I'll try to get through it really fast. The whole storyline of, you know, Noodle and Willy Wonka kind of bonding and, you know, kind of building their own family, and then eventually Noodle going back and finding her mom, and Willy Wonka helping her in that journey. So beautiful, and it brought tears to my eyes. It did when Willy Wonka finally helped Noodle reunite with her mother, and he starts singing Pure Imagination, and there's this bittersweet moment where, you know, he's like, I'm glad I did this for her. You know, I can't be with my mother ever again, but I'm glad I could do this for someone who for so long didn't even know who their mother was. I think the connection between Willy and his mom in the movie, despite the fact that we really only see her for 5 minutes of the film, we know a lot, and we're given a lot of exposition, and we understand what kind of person she was in the translation and through who Willy is as a person in this movie. I loved that a lot. I had a great time experiencing that emotion and that storyline. I really enjoyed it. Keegan-Michael Key, obviously a treasure. I loved him as the cop, as the chief of police, and I think he was really funny, and I think he really played into it well. And also, you know, Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa was so enjoyable and sassy and sarcastic and really fun to see an Oompa Loompa really get a voice, because in the original Willy Wonka, they're not as much of the main characters, and they exist, but we don't really get to know much or see much of them. We just get that one song. I think giving the Oompa Loompas a bit of a voice and a bit more of a backstory in this movie was really great, and I loved that a lot. And I love the chemistry between Hugh Grant and Timothée Chalamet. I love how they're butting heads midway through the movie, and they're still butting heads at the end of the movie, but you can tell they're going to work really well together. I love that a lot.
Hi, this is Jacob in post-production. I would also like to point out, because I forgot to say it when I was filming, that I love the Chocolate Cartel. Those three work so well as a comedic antagonist for Willy Wonka, and I think it was a really great addition to the movie. Okay, back to the video.
There's a bittersweet nature to this film in multiple layers. You know, there's the obvious bittersweet of, like, oh, Willy isn't with his mom anymore, but he's building a new family, but then he's you know letting Noodle back into her own family, and, you know, he's doing a lot of things for a lot of people, but he doesn't have a lot that he's doing for himself. But then eventually, you know, he gets that closure at the end where he sees his mom, and oh god, that moment made me break down. That was so God, I loved that part. But it's bittersweet in that way. It's bittersweet in the way that you can tell he feels alone through a lot of the movie, but he's hiding it a little bit through his, wonder and positivity. And I'm not saying that he's an actor. I'm not saying that, he's fake throughout the whole movie, but he's a hurt soul that still manages to push through, and that's a nice thing to see, and it makes you tear up a little bit of how and that's just the character, that's something where Willy Wonka as a character is that guy, is that positive, magical, beautiful soul that always pushes through everything because he has pure imagination and he chooses to embrace that. I also think it's bittersweet in that this was a movie made, whether you liked it or not, this was a movie that was doing something for the original Willy Wonka movie, and it exists because of that Willy Wonka movie. And the original Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, can't be here to see it. And I think that's another bittersweet thing where, he definitely is the reason this character is even in people's minds. He's the reason that I even care about this character. He's the reason that I'm wearing a purple shirt for this video. He's the reason I bought a popcorn bucket that looks like a Willy Wonka hat. He's the reason for a lot of things, and he's the reason for this movie existing, and yet he can never see it. And so that's another bittersweet layer to it. But I think all of that bittersweet and all of that beauty that I think the film brings, it's with a purpose, and it's to tell people that are watching, don't stop being a kid. You don't have to be immature, but don't stop being a kid. Don't stop imagining and creating and believing in things that are seemingly impossible, because they're possible sometimes. I loved this movie, and I had a great time watching it, and obviously I have a lot to say about it. I could speak way more, but I'm not gonna make this an hour-long video. But I had a really good time with this movie, and I hope you did too. If you didn't and you disagree, I totally am cool with that. I actually really am starting to get better at enjoying slight discourse and slight constructive arguments about movies. I've been bad about that in the past and not letting people enjoy things, so I'm actually welcoming any criticism you had on the Wonka movie. I don't know how much I'll be able to respond to, because I may just not agree with you, or I may not have the expertise to respond to any technical critiques you have about the movie, but I encourage the disagreement. Except for one person. Let me tell you a story, okay? Jacob Marscola, he gets out of the Wonka movie with his family. He's having a great time. He's smiling at the masterpiece he's just watched. He gets in his car, they all drive home, and then the next day, after he posts on his small YouTube channel about how he's gonna make a Wonka video, he gets a text from his friend, Andrew Mister, and he's saying, oh, hey, I'd love to hear about the things that you think about the Wonka movie. I have very different opinions. I disagree with what you have to say. And then, might I say, a rather civil conversation through a series of voice memos occurs between me and Mister, and I think it went really well. But do you have the balls to make a video as well, Andrew? I sat here praising the movie, really opening myself up to criticism with how gullible, honestly, I was being about how amazing the movie is. I want to see if you have the balls to tell me and everyone on this channel and the internet what you didn't think about the movie and what you didn't. Why don't you make a video about Wonka and tell me what you think about the movie that I think is quite genius. I challenge you. I don't think you'll take it, though. I think you're a coward. Why don't you just try me? Go ahead, make a video. I dare you. Meanwhile, me and my channel and my subscribers will be sitting here mostly enjoying the movie. I'm sure some people disagree with me, but we will be enjoying this movie. So I await your response, mister. In the meantime, listen down and quiet up. Scratch that, reverse it. I love this movie. I love talking about movies. Please send me any disagreements or agreements you have. And I enjoy people watching. So please watch, and thank you for watching. And thank you for almost 200 subscribers. And I appreciate the support. And have a great day. I don't have anything else to say. I'm just gonna
I'm just gonna put the hat on and get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it.